Now, one of the issues that you might see with this is that all of my links look basically the same. My site links that I have that's going to be at the top of my page are the same as the links inside of my page. And I probably want that to be a little bit different. So I'm going to show you how we can style those site links to make them really stand out. And the way we're going to do this is with a nested selector. If I go into my HTML page, you can notice I have my body tag, then inside of that I have a header, and inside of that I have nav. Now, I can use just simply the tags, or I have also a class that's called primary nav that's going to be used, and I can use the links inside of that primary nav. Either way is going to work basically the same. Either way, it's going to work basically the same. We're going to create a nested selector, and by doing so, what we're actually going to be doing is we're going to select all the necessary tags from the anchor tag out that make it unique. That way I make sure that I'm styling it different than any other tag. So I'm going to come over here and specify nav anchor. And I could also say header nav anchor if I would have a different nav in a different place. Or I could say nav dot primary dash navigation in order to get it that way. Either way works. But now this is going to be different than my anchor tag. Anything that I put inside my anchor tag is going to hold true if I don't override it inside my nav A selector. But since nav A selector is more specific, it's going to take and override anything I just put inside my regular anchor tag. Or it allows me to add things that are not inside my regular anchor tag. So for example, I may want the font size to stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to say 120%. Now when I reload, notice that it's just a little bit bigger, and that helps it kind of stand out just a little bit more. I could also, instead of saying 120%, I could say something like 25 pixels or maybe 1.5 rem. All these are legitimate ways to resize my font size if I want. I'm going to take my text decoration and take the text decoration and set it to none. I'm going to give a little bit of padding, just 5 pixels, just a little bit, and a little bit of margin space. Once again, I'm just going to specify 5 pixels and see how that works for me. When I reload, notice that my text is a little bit bigger as I change my font size. I now no longer have that underline, and that's not common inside of a link inside of a nav bar. If I go to hover over it, you notice that I can be not on the text exactly, and that's that padding. Any place where I have the padding is still part of that hover area. So now I don't have to be exactly on a link. I can just be near it and get what I need. So that's very helpful for me. Now there's a few other things that I might want to do, and I'm just going to show those real quick. The first is I'm going to choose a background color. I just want something just to kind of help stand out a little bit, not necessarily a lot. And I'm going to choose burly wood. That's just like a nice kind of color right in here. You'll notice it is pretty similar to my light tan that I have. It's a little bit darker tan, helps it stand out just a little bit more. I could also use the RGB values if I wanted to. And I'm going to put a real thin border. And I'm going to use kind of a gray color. Now the reason for doing that is because I don't want it to really stand out. I don't want that border to be prominent. I just want it to be visible enough, and I think this does it for me. Now I could obviously put some border radiuses on and kind of round the borders, make it a little bit softer, But what I also want to show you is how to kind of create a hover effect. And this is a pretty simple thing inside of my navigation as well. I'm going to do nav A just like I did before. And just like I had my hover effect before, I'm going to say : hover. So you're noticing that we're using the same techniques that we used before we're using here. We're just starting to combine them. So now I have two selectors with a pseudo selector. And I don't want my color to change in that red the way it does right now. I want to specify a different color. So I'm going to specify my color to be white. And then I'm going to choose a background color. And this is so it really, really stands out. And since my color is white, I need a dark background. So I'm going to just choose black. And now notice that when I hover over, there is a very obvious effect, and you can see that. Once again, just like with my hover effect on a regular link tag in my CSS, I don't want to change things like my font size or the fonts or font weight or anything like that. I don't want to change my size. I want to keep it very simple and straightforward. And this is a great way of doing it. I'm just changing my background color, and it's very obvious which one is selected. Now, the other one that I will often select is if I want to show what page you're currently on. And this is actually even more important if I have a big website and this is part of a subcategory of a major page. And so we'll take a quick look at that. And all I'm going to do is say nav a dot active. Now, this active class is one that I've created. It's not out there right now. I have to define it. I have to specify where it is. So to specify where it is, I just need to kind of show, hey, this is where I'm at. So I'm going to choose a slightly different color. I'm going to choose a very light color. So I'm going to go ahead and go with that white again. And then the background color, instead of going all the way black, I'm going to say like 444. That's a nice, really dark gray. Should be obvious which one it is, but it's also going to keep it so where you can tell when you're hovering over an effect or not. Now, if I reload, you're going to notice that, hey, nothing happened, and that's because I still need to come in here to my link tag and add a class for active. So I'll say class equals active. And now you can see it. Now I've got that really dark gray. It's different than the black, but it lets me identify and see what's going on. Now the question is going to be, what happens if I have an active tag and I have a hover effect? Well, if I roll over it, notice that nothing happens in this case. And the reason why is because of that link specificity. You might say, well, what is this specificity? And that's just how specific is our selector. Easy way to think about this is if I roll over a selector, I have here a selector specificity 0, 1, 2. Okay? And those numbers aren't random. If I come over here and say nav A, you'll see it's 0, 0, 2. So what that is it is any IDs, that's your first number. Then your classes, that's your second number, and then your tags. Classes are more specific than tags. So here I have a 0, 1, 2. This beats a 0, 0, 2. It would also beat a 0, 1, 1 because 0, 1, 2 is more specific. But if I hover over the nav A active, you notice it has the exact same specificity, in which case the last one wins. Okay, so this is the reason why my active doesn't have the hover effect. It's simply because it was last and they have the same specificity. I like to think of this very easily as a matter of, could I add these numbers up? And the way to add them up is my first number I times by 100. And so I go 0 times 100 is 0. Okay. My second number I times by 10. And so 1 times 10 is 10. and then I add that second number, and so that gives me a specificity of 12. If I have a hover, I have a 0, 1, 1. That is a specificity of 11, which is why nav A hover or nav A active both supersede it. And so that's how we're going to use our multiple selectors in order to get the ability to define and style something like our navigation links, is by learning about that specificity and keeping us as detailed as possible.